Hey, what's going on, everybody? Paul Turner here from the discipleproject.net. So glad to be with you today. And today is office hours day. It's Wednesday and it's youth meeting day. And so, what a great opportunity. If you have questions for me about youth ministry, well, it's a great opportunity to get those questions, even if it's questions about tonight. Like you're having youth meeting tonight, and you say, Paul, I got questions. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm in trouble. I don't know what's going to happen. Well, now is a good time to ask those questions. It's also a good time to ask questions, for the future, like things you're working on versus, these 911 emergency type deals, which hopefully you don't have too many of. But if you're brand new here to the channel or you're just kind of scrolling by and you have no idea who I am or what I'm doing, once again, I am Paul Turner from the discipleproject.net. I've been a youth pastor for a little over 30 years. I have been in the digital space, YouTube channels, podcasts, blogging, and all that for a little over 15 years. And I enjoy training and equipping youth pastors. That's what I do because I was kind of born in the fire of it, right? So I had a great youth ministry experience. I had great youth pastors, and so all of that bled over into me, and so that's why the Lord has seen fit to allow me to continue on for as long as I have. Not all smooth sailing. I just want to point that out. Not all smooth sailing. It's not even smooth sailing now, but you got to keep going. If that's what you're called to do, well, you just keep going until you find clarity as to what you're supposed to do next. And that's kind of where I'm at. I'm going to keep doing it until I get clarity on what I'm supposed to do next. And hopefully you will do the same. So don't quit until you get some clarity, okay? So today we're talking about your questions. That's what we're talking about. And so let's go to question number one. Question number one here on Office Hours is brought to you by my brand new resource, Halloween Would You Rather Questions. And it's a great tool and a great resource. There's a total of 50, and I meant to put up here is 31 because it's 31 days in October. And I don't know why I have 30. This must be like an old graphic I have in there. But anyway, I do have 31 days where you basically can order this. It's only $1.99. And for $1.99, you're going to get, listen to this, you're going to get 50 questions on a sheet. You're also going to get 31 days of would you rather questions that you can post on Instagram. I also made TikTok or story graphics. You can post them there as well. And it's just a fun way to engage. It's a fun way to engage with your students. And then you have that every day. You don't have to think about what am I going to post today? Well, you have this. For the month of October, you have that. Not only that, by the way, you're also going to get, I made something called Which is Scarier? The Bible Edition. And it's just really simple. Which is scarier? Is it scary to spend 3 days in the belly of a whale or 40 days on Noah's Ark? which would be scarier? And once again, I have 31, I have 50 of these, 50 which is scarier questions. And then I have 50 of Instagram and TikTok graphics for $1.99. So listen, if you're wondering how you can engage with your students, how you can stay engaged with your students, well, this is a quick way to do it. It's an easy way to do it, and quite frankly, it's a cheap way to do it. And so you can go ahead and you can grab that. It comes actually with slides, so if you want to do it as a Wednesday night thing, you can go ahead and put it up on the slides. There's 10 to a presentation, and you can just do it with your group that way. So I give you the options, and I give you a little, there's a PDF with a bunch of ideas of ways you could use it to connect with your students. So easy enough. So let's go ahead and move on to the first question here. First question is, who are some small youth group curriculum creators? This is a good question because the winner of the curriculum, races, right, often goes to the biggest groups, the ones with the most reach, the ones with the most marketing, and then we just tend to forget everybody else. Now, I am a curriculum creator. I write curriculum. That's part of what I do. And I'm going to show you there was I saw some ones I just Googled. Just Google, youth ministry curriculum, and there are going to be those who are at the top of the Google page. That's not necessarily because they're the best. for you. Every curriculum, even mine, is not best for everybody. When you're choosing a curriculum, and when I say curriculum, I'm talking about like a sermon series or even if it's an individual message, or, if you're doing something very processed by levels and those kind of things. You know what? They're not all designed for every church. They will tell you that it is, but it is not. You have to be then discerning as a youth pastor to say, okay, is this really for me? Is this really for my group? Is this something I really want to, is this the track I want my kids to run on? Or is there someplace else to, some way to be able to do that? And so let me just show you, I'm going to bring up, and I'm going to show you mine too, by the way. There's no shame in my game. I don't mind you showing mine, but I'm going to show you a few others first, okay? So in doing this, let me show you a couple here. Let's see. Here we go. All right, so this here is Youth Pastor Co. And Youth Pastor Co. is a curriculum. They do more than that. I'll kind of walk through it here. But Youth Pastor Co. It's youthpastor.co is what it is. And so basically you have options. You have sermon prep, media needs, yearly planning. All sermon series packages include, you're going to get sermon series graphics, sermon builder curriculum, sermon bumper videos, small group material, social media graphics. A membership to Youth Pastor Co. will help you grow your ministry, right? It tells you what it's going to do. Now, the difference here is, let's go ahead and just get access now, because that's going to tell you how much it's going to cost. So you get 20% off by joining Premium with coaching. And once again, let me just say, I have not used this curriculum. This is just me kind of just eyeballing it. There's no question that some of the material is going to be good. The question is it good for you? And is it good for your budget? So here you have $400 a year. There's not a lot of I will say this, that small churches, $400 a year is a lot for curriculum. Okay, it's 40. Basically, you're looking at, what is it, $30 a month, something like that. 30, 300, close to 35 or $40 a month. Which, if you average it out, and your church can probably handle something like that. And then you have premium memberships, which is $797 a month, and that's closer to like $75 a month. And you get online communities, and you get all those things. And by the way, none of this is sponsored. Nobody's contacted me. Nobody said, Paul, if you show this, we'll give you some money or free curriculum. Don't need it. Don't want it. That's not my jam. So now listen, if people want to throw money at me to talk about their products, oh yes, I will. But I will always tell you when that is the case. This is not the case. These are other names in the field of curriculum that you may not be aware of, that I want to make you aware of. Okay. And if you have questions, by the way, throughout this about any curriculum, things like that, questions about curriculum, happy to answer them. Have written enough curriculum, have bought enough curriculum. I've been around the block a couple of times. So these are what you're going to get, right? So you average it out to about $40 a month, but I don't know. I don't know what you're getting. You probably have access to everything and you kind of build it yourself. I don't think you get, a bunch of stuff. So the question is what's in there going to be for your youth ministry? Is it going to connect with your kids? I don't know. That's something you'd have to find out. Then there's a company called Multiply Curriculum. And Multiply Curriculum is good advertising, by the way. It's good copy. Both of these sites have good copy. They're telling you exactly what you want to hear here. You're not the average youth pastor, and we're not the average curriculum. Okay. It's good stuff. And so you have, you want to stay relevant, save time, reach students, and then talking about ministry evolution. Our approach, most curriculum starts by giving answers. We start with asking questions. What does the Bible say? What do our students need? What's the bottom line? What's my next step? And then it's time to multiply. So it's time to multiply your ministry, become a member, download the curriculum, reach more students. Now, here's where I'll have well, it's not a contention. I don't want to say it's contentious. Here's where I have a difference in this. I don't think curriculum, the lessons are good. It's not the curriculum. The curriculum is kind of the conduit, right? But you could write your own curriculum and do exactly this. You could reach more students writing your own curriculum. You could reach more students in designing your own programs, right? You don't have to buy something from somebody else. Curriculum is a way, right? It's a way. It's not the way to reach more students. If you want to reach more students, we'll go preach the gospel. Preach the gospel always. You're right. Share the gospel. These are just ways of interacting with students. Okay. So I think we get hung up about curriculum. Do I have the right curriculum? Yes, you have if you have a Bible, you have the right curriculum. Okay. If you have a Bible, you have the right curriculum. And you could write your own messages. It's perfectly okay. There's no reason why you can't. Yes, I understand there's time savers. Yes, I understand that if you have a thing and you can make it your own. Absolutely. No question. I guess I come from a place where I say, look, that we can become so curriculum conditioned that curriculum's the answer to our problem, that the reason our youth ministry isn't growing is because of the curriculum. Our youth ministry we're not making disciples because we don't have the right curriculum. And I'm just saying, there's a lot more going on in your church than curriculum. There's a lot of other dynamics. There's a lot of other things happening that have nothing to do with the curriculum. You could have the best curriculum. You could have the best speaker. You could have the best facilities and still not be growing, because there's churches that are exactly like that. And there are other dynamics. So I guess my caution to you is, regardless of the curriculum you're choosing, I think you got to dig down deeper and ask, is curriculum the thing I'm really looking for? Sometimes we grab for straws. Sometimes we grab for things and go, that's it. That's the answer. And it's not the answer. It makes us feel better to grab onto curriculum to say that's the answer, when I know that there's more going on in the world. There's more happening in our churches as to why our youth ministries and churches don't grow, right? Curriculum is a way, and it can give your students and it can give you personal relief knowing that you have a year's worth of curriculum and you don't have to worry about curriculum, so that you can work on the other issues and problems that you may be having. But the curriculum itself doesn't make disciples. You make disciples. Jesus didn't say, go into all the world and write curriculum and make disciples. He just said, go make disciples, right? So we have to remember that discipleship is relational, not educational. Educational is part of it, but if you're looking at education being 5%, then 95% is relational, and we still have to be in the relational phase of making disciples, and not counting on the teaching to make disciples. Okay, that's the teaching's there for a reason. I understand that, but was that a rant? I'm not even sure if that was a rant or not, but I know I have strong feelings about it. But I'm not going to say it's a rant. You leave me a note, leave me a comment. Paul, this says, hey, Paul, that was a rant. You just ranted. Okay, that's fine. I don't have any problem with that. All right, let's carry on. Let's go to my friend Dan Isvanek. Dan Isvanek has been a guest on my podcast, which is right here on the YouTube channel. And I will put a link down to his show there, and where we talk about volunteers, we talk about youth ministry, we talk about a lot of things, and good stuff. Dan's a good dude. So if you want to go check out, it's youthmenhub.com, and he has lots of resources there, right? He's got 7-Minute Sundays. He's got this curriculum here, 1 night complete, done for you youth group nights. And this is kind of my jam. This is where I go, okay, this is kind of my wheelhouse of how I construct putting together youth nights. I like thematics. So for me, I'm going to go ahead, like Sundays, I teach more expository, where we're going through 1 Timothy, whereas Wednesday nights are built around a fun type of idea. Like right now we're doing something called Baby Steps, which is talking about how to get from, new in the faith to mature. Basically, we're talking about maturity and maturing in the faith. And what does that look like? Well, there's games and all that kind of stuff. And it's going to be on the website soon. So it's going to be in my store. So be sure to stay in contact. Be sure you're subscribed to the channel here, and you'll know when it's going to be up there. So yeah, he's got some really good things here. He's got Wired. He's got Level Up. He's got The Good Life, Welcome to the Planet, And you can see here, these prices, sure. If you bought 40 of these, you would equal out to one of the other curriculums, right? You can buy 40 of these, and I bet if they're one night, so you have 40 nights. So you could do, almost a year's worth of just one nights if that's what you want to do. And some of these are, there's games he has there, which are really good. A lot of fun there. I don't do a lot of games. I just rather write curriculum. That's my thing. I show games here on the channel. So if you're interested in that, there'll be a link, probably in the show notes somewhere where I'm talking about games. I have a playlist of like 95 games, I want to say. But yeah, these are all great games that Dan has. So I would encourage you, go visit youthmenhub.com and go ahead and all the links will be in the show notes for all these places. You can judge it for yourself. Okay? Judge it for yourself. All right. Last but not least, we have my store, which is Youthmin Resources, gumroad.com/Youthmin Resources. In fact, let me go ahead and put that up there for you if you're interested in that at all. I will go ahead and, let's see, go ahead and take that. Let's see. All right. There. I got to go back to the other thing. Excuse me. I'll do that in a second. I'm not going to worry about it. I got to get to something else. It's complicated. Sorry. Let's move on, shall we? Okay. In order to be able to do what I was going to do. All right. So this is my store. It's right here. Gumroad.com/Youthmin Resources. And here you have the 50. There's the correct logo, by the way. 50 Would You Rathers. I have messages. A lot of these are free, by the way. There's a lot of free stuff on my site here. There's One Way to Mars, which talks about loneliness. It's one of my favorite messages, actually, because the idea, the issue that it's addressing is so prevalent and is evergreen. Loneliness is a thing like forever. Okay. And then it tells you what you have in there and all that. And you can see here, it's it's pay what you want, really. So you can just say, hey, I want it for $1. I want it for $2. Or say, Paul, I want to spend $5. Okay, go ahead. Now there are some things, like if I go back over here, you go back through, once again, I have Ultimate Youth Group Party List, Youth Group Checklist, this series here. Now this series, the more time and effort I put into it, the more work I put into it, I tend to, I'll charge a little bit more because the work is in there, right? You're getting a lot of stuff. So this is a Do the Math series. It's a Christian living series, okay? And it is just $11.99, not super expensive, and then it gives you 4 weeks worth of lessons and games and activities, closing ideas, social media graphics, all the good stuff that you would expect in there, okay? So let me go back over here now. So that's my site. You're welcome to check it out for yourself. I'll put a link down to that in the show notes. So if you're looking for lessons, there's over 300 products in the store here. There's one night stuff, there's series, there's 2-week lessons, there's 3-week lessons. And you say, Paul, are you going to do type of membership? Not really. I don't think I am. Because first of all, I'm just a solo guy. A lot of these other sites that you may see have teams of people that can manage that stuff. I can't manage that stuff. I'm just a youth pastor, and I like to create the stuff that I'm creating. I want to pass on to you. A lot of it's free. Some of it costs something. And so if it's of interest to you, I hope you'll check it out. But you check out what's good for your youth group. My stuff may not be the best for your youth group, but there's stuff out there that's going to connect with you as a youth pastor, and then hopefully will connect with your students. Okay? All right. Let's come back over here. Now, what I was going to show you earlier, now that we're done with that question, I can put up here, gumroad.com/Youthmin Resources. And so, like I said, if you have any questions about curriculum, if you have any questions about any of those things, I want to be able to help you make those decisions. I don't want to necessarily just sell you stuff. I want to do what's right by you and give you what you can. But if you can support what I do, fantastic. It's a match. It's a match. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Let's go to another question. Question number two. Question number two is brought to you by My Youth Meeting Playbook. My Youth Meeting Playbook is right here near me because I am working on stuff tonight. And so if you look in here, it has It's a playbook. It's a planner. There's two things here. You're going to get meetings. You're going to get 52. As you can see the little number up there, 25, right? You get 52 sheets, PDF. You can always copy them. You can make as many copies as you want. It does not come in a physical. It's not this is my physical. I copied it, and you can do the same. Just take it to your local Kinko's or wherever you may be, and UPS, wherever, and get it printed for yourself right from the PDF. And I've made it and formatted it in such a way that it's going to be super simple, not super complicated, no extra pages, straight up, all that. So like I said, if you want, you have all the meeting pieces and parts in your meeting here. If you look on this side, if you look on this side right here, it has all your meeting parts in there that I encourage you to look through. And then there's another one that comes in and is another book, another PDF, which is this is the planner part. And then there's a playbook part, which tells you how to use this. So if you're new to youth ministry, great resource to have. So let's go ahead and jump into the next question. I have a small youth group. How can I maintain or gain momentum? Okay, let's go ahead and fix that. It irritates me. All right, let's do that. All right, so question number 2 is, I have a small youth group. How can I gain momentum? Well, it's a good question because it's hard. It's if you have a small youth group, and I have a small youth group, I have 7-8 students, and I love my students. If my students should ever see this, know this. I love you. You guys are awesome. Can't wait to see you tonight. And I think the deal is this. If you're having trouble, and I wrote this down, so I'm going to read some of this because I have thoughts and opinions. And here's what I wrote down. And you can take it as a motivational statement, or you can take it as a word from the Lord some way. Okay. And I wrote down, the time for safety is over. Safe is overrated. And I say that because if you have a small youth group, 7 to 8 students, and let's say some of them play sports, and they're missing, if you have a small youth group, 7 to 8, and they're missing Wednesday nights because of sports, because of other things, and some nights you have 2, and sometimes you have 4, and sometimes you have 6, and sometimes you have 1, it happens. I understand. I promise. And it's super difficult to maintain any type of consistency because you're having to train and move around the numbers you have. But I would say that no matter what your numbers are, you have to show up, be a youth pastor. Be a youth pastor of that 1. Until you're ready to be a youth pastor of 1, you can't be youth pastor of 100. Okay? If you can't be youth pastor for 1, you can't be youth pastor for 100. And I'm not saying God's going to give you 100 students. I'm just saying, be youth pastor for 1. Be youth pastor for 1. If you can do that, you're good. But I think, here's where my answer comes in. I think it might be time, if you're running into that brick wall, I think it's time to have a meeting with parents and your pastor. Because you have to ask, do parents understand the goals of the youth ministry? Does the pastor know and understand the goals of the youth ministry? Does the church know the goals and the plans of the youth ministry? Okay? There's no shame in asking for help. Because if you're reaching a point where now every week is sadness, and you're just sad because you can't get the momentum, or you can't get enough kids, or you can't do enough this, it's time to have a meeting. It's time to gather people up and say, I need help. I am lost in the weeds here, okay? And we got to get on the same page. What can we do to, first of all, pour into our students? Before we reach out to other kids, how can we pour into our kids? How can we pour into these students? How can we build consistency among the students we have? Because if we're reaching other people, I don't think it's going to matter. You can gain all these other kids, but it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be what you think. I think, you'll get them, but man, the kids you start out with, those are the kids, man. Those are the students you've started with. And quite frankly, the students you were probably hired to minister to in the first place. So I would say this: you got to have a meeting, pastor, parents, church board, whoever you got to have, and you, as far as, listen, you have to be able to come up with a standard. You have to be able to come up with, do we need to change the youth night of the week? Is it a night of the week problem? And you're talking about practical issues. We're not talking about blame. We're not blaming parents. We're not blaming students. We're not blaming people. We're saying what is best for our students and how can we build just consistency. Just consistency. That's all I'm looking for. We're not looking for super powerful growth here. We're not looking for 500 kids. We're saying, look, how can we make this adaptable, build our youth program around the students we have currently to be able to find momentum with the kids we have? Because it's really, I think, this is super opinionated here, but I think that disciples are made not by just reaching out. I think we do our students a disservice by saying, we're going to grow this youth ministry, and then you get to hang out with a bunch of kids. If you have a small youth group, be thankful, because you're getting to tell your students things personal, up close and personal. It says, look, discipleship happens if this youth, look how the church grew in the first century. Look how the church grew, and people got saved at the preaching of the gospel. People were changed, and then they found a community to be a part of. And so when students understand that, and you're teaching that, first of all, it's not super sexy. It's just not, and kids aren't like, woo, discipleship. But yet that's where it is. Okay? That's where it is. It's students reaching students. It's not you reaching students. It's you teaching them how to reach their friends for Christ. It's you trying to teach them how to communicate the gospel for themselves. And that's why we have problems in the church. I know this guy. What is up, Ethan Green? I'll take a moment from my rant to say hello to you, sir, because I know you. And I want to thank you for hanging out for a little bit today. But you're right. Nothing super sexy about it. It's just work. It's what discipleship is. It's working. It's putting in time. It's building relationships. It's all the things. And so, I think that's where we got to go. And we do our students a disservice by not teaching them to reach their own friends. We go out and reach friends, but our students have learned nothing about discipleship. They've learned nothing about communicating the gospel to their friends. They know nothing about walking with their friends in the midst of their mess. And I think we have to do that. And if you have a small youth group, it's really good to do that. It's really good to do that with your students. So that is my encouragement. If you have a small youth group and you're having trouble maintaining or gaining momentum, time to have a meeting. Time to talk about it. Because otherwise you're judged on your performance as a youth pastor. You can't get it done. Well, it's time to call on the other players. Listen, football teams don't win or lose with one guy. It's a team effort. The youth ministry isn't failing because you're failing. The youth ministry is failing for 1,000 other reasons. It's not just because of you. So if you think it's just your fault, I'm just telling you it's not completely your fault. You may be part of it. I'm not excusing you. I'm just saying that it does not rise or fall upon you, the individual leader, in the sense of how the youth ministry grows. You're the leader. You got to be the leader. But the success of your youth ministry is not entirely upon you. It is upon the church. And the church has to come in, other people, and by the church, I mean other people, the pastor, the parents, church board, whoever it is, and say, how do we help you, youth pastor? What do we have to do to make this work? And that's the deal. That's the deal. And so I hope that is helpful to you. For those of you that can't seem to, get a hang of this or find or maintain momentum in your small youth groups. Once again, it breaks your heart. But you know what? The harvest fields are watered with tears and prayers. So that's what I think. If you have questions, by the way, we're going to move on to our next question here. So you if you have questions or feedback, once again, you can leave some comments down below about all of that, what you think of that. Let's go. Let's go ahead and move on to, what do we have there? Nope. What is that? Nope, I don't want to do that. Let's see. Let's talk about, what do we got here? No. What do I want? I want this. Let's put that in there. That's what I'm doing now is because I'm on a certain page, but I don't want that in there. I don't want you to see that yet. All right. So, the question is, let's move that down a little bit. The question. All right, here we go. All right. So, question number 3. Oh, well, let's go. Before I get to question number 3, let's talk to Mr. Ethan Green. Ethan says, how do you keep youth attention? Here's my number 1 rule, Ethan. Say something interesting. If you are a communicator, you are communicating. Your role as a communicator is to keep their attention. And I know that we blame students for not paying attention, but remember, teenagers are teenagers. Their brains are on fire with 5,000 things. We have to know that getting up there and communicating. And some of the best communicators struggle with it in doing that. But my number 1 rule is say something interesting. Make sure that what you're talking about, make sure you're not pandering to them. Make sure you're not, coddling them. Make sure you're not just flapping to the gums, because you only have, if you're going to speak a message, okay, Ethan, if you're going to speak a message, you have whatever you have. You have 2 minutes, maybe less than a minute, to grab a hold of their attention, okay? And you need to be, what have I heard? I've heard it say this way. Say what you're going to say. Tell them what you're going to say. Say what you're going to say. And then reiterate what you have just said. So you need, just like when you watch a YouTube video, at the YouTube video, right at the very beginning of the YouTube video, they say, hey, so-and-so, and we're going to talk about X and X and X. So if you're going to get up there and talk, I think the first thing you have to do is you have to be interesting about what it is you're going to talk about. If you say, hey, tonight, we're going to be talking about dating and relationships, okay? But we're not going to talk about just any dating relationships. We're going to talk about your dating relationships. And of course, kids get all funny and weird when you say things like that, and they get embarrassed. So I think partly number 1 is you have to be interesting as it applies to students. Sometimes people say, well, we're going to read the Bible, and we don't make any connection to the student. We don't, excuse me, we don't put it in any kind of context to help a student get into that story. So maybe you say, hey, right at the very beginning, say, hey, can I take us, ask a question. I find that's the next thing. Say something interesting, but the next thing is ask a question. Can I ask you guys a question? Or can I tell you a story? Jesus did a lot of that. Can I tell you a story about the time that I burned all my girlfriend's notes? Would you like to hear about that? Ethan, would you like to hear about the time I burned all my girlfriend's notes? Just went out and had a bonfire and just threw them all in there. Does that grab your attention? Sure it does. Because it's a story and you want to know, well, why did you do that, Paul? Why did you do all those things? So now you have a hook. Now you're saying, look, I'm talking about something that's of interest to you. How many of you have ever wanted to burn? How many of you have ever wanted to burn your girlfriend's notes? Or, it's notes for me. How many of you ever wanted to go back and just destroy your phone with all these texts on them, or erase all these texts, or things like that? Well, okay, a few of you. So for me, I'll finish the story for you, Ethan, is this, real simple. I was dating a girl, and I lived in Vero Beach, Florida, and I would ride my bike over a 3-mile bridge. I'm sure it's 3 miles. Maybe it's a mile. Not 3 miles. A mile. But that's a long way when the bridge goes up like that, okay? Or up like this. I show you this way, okay? And I was going over to see this girl, and I found out we had exchanged notes and so forth, and I went and saw her, and we broke up. I mean, it wasn't gelling. It wasn't connecting. And I remember I would ride my bike over there before I could drive. I would ride my bike over there, and I just felt like I was putting a lot of effort into this thing. And and she just didn't care. She just didn't, I probably felt too as a young man that I wasn't getting enough, I wasn't getting enough kisses. I wasn't looking for like, whatever, but I just felt like there wasn't enough of that. So I was like, so I pitched a fit, and I came back and I took all, my notes that we had. I took them outside. I got the barbecue, oil, lighter fluid, poured it all over the stuff, and just lit it on fire. Say, Paul, that's extreme. Well, you know what? Teenagers are extreme. They just are. Now, that's how I start my story. And that is how I engage students. I try to help them understand that. I also, how do I keep youth attention? Well, I say something interesting. I try to start with a story. I try to tell them what's coming. Guys, if you give me 5 more minutes, if you just give me 5 minutes, I'll show you how to do totally drastically where girls and guys, you will have outstanding relationships. You will in time build an outstanding relationship that you're in right now, if you want to. How many of you would like to keep a long-term relationship? How many of you would not like to be like the Kardashians? Or how would you not like to be, whoever it may be in society at the time? So for me, I'm giving them a promise. So say something interesting. Tell them a story. Make a promise that whatever you're about to deliver on, make them a promise, and then deliver on that promise. In fact, over-deliver on that promise. Say, I'm going to give you. And say, if you listen to me, I'm going to tell you how to build the greatest relationship you'll ever have. And then you can say, how many of you would like to get married? Great. If you'll listen to me now, you'll have one of the greatest marriages. If you'll start with me now, I'll tell you how to have one of the greatest marriages you can ever have. And then you deliver on that. And if you're married, obviously you have stories to tell on that as well. And so yeah, that's how I communicate and keep their attention. Number 1, I ask questions. Number 2, I tell stories. Number 3, I make them a promise. Number 4, I deliver on that promise. And by the end, and I'm not there to talk all night, 20 minutes, I have other things that supplement this, by the way. And they'll teach you this. If you, like here on YouTube, I take a YouTube course. And so they'll tell you that in a video, you've got to keep things moving, right? So you got to keep things moving to keep the attention of the people. So yes, I'm going to use video. Yes, I'm going to use slides. Yes, I'm going to use physical objects to bring in front of them. So I'm going to keep changing it up. It's not just going to be straight, oration, right? I'm just not going to, I'm just not going to just speak and hope and expect them to pay attention. It's unfair of me to expect them to pay attention to me if I am not engaging them. And so I have to fix most young people have to fix their expectations. You bring up an excellent point, Mr. Green. And that is that, let's see here. You bring up the point, Ethan. It says, honestly, Paul, it seems cell phones never got on your nerves in service while you were talking. Why not? Great observation, Ethan. Why? Well, because I'm not responsible for you in your spiritual journey. If you would rather spend time on your phone than listen to me, then I believe life will prove itself out. Right? So people say, and people have done this, and I used to get, listen, I'm not perfect, Ethan. Yeah, sometimes did it make me annoyed sometimes, right? But by the time you were in my youth group, I had already resolved some things. Early on, if you had a cell phone or whatever, and I would be offended that you're listening to your phone or watching your phone or whatever it is you're doing, it would annoy me. But the issue to me, Ethan, isn't whether or not you have a cell phone or not. I am the communicator. My role, if I'm a good communicator, is to make you look up from your phone. I want you to pay attention, but I know that what I'm teaching and what I'm sharing with you is life-giving. And there are some students that cannot engage that way. They have to be doing something else. That's why they came out with fidget spinners, and people would play with fidget spinners. And youth groups have all kinds of rules. Some youth groups take up cell phones, right? They take up the cell phones, so you can't play with your cell phone, and you got to put it in a box. And they lock the box. And they don't get their phones back until afterwards. Or they put it in a basket. Or whatever it is. But see, cell phones aren't the problem. Not in my opinion. If you have a cell phone in my group, I'm going to encourage you. And the other way is this, Ethan, is that I teach kids how to use their cell phones properly. Now, if cell phones are causing an issue where, and I've gotten onto my students, yes, even in my small youth group of 7 or 8, they're Snapchatting and doing things, I look at them and I'll stop. I'll just stop talking. And I'll look at them and go, we done? Because now they know I know. I'm not making a big deal about it, but I am going to look and say, hey, we done? Okay. And then I carry on. I don't make a big deal about it. I just move on. And so I don't do that because I encourage them to use their cell phones. Take notes. Take pictures. Take pictures of the screen so you can take this scripture with you. Take notes and then post it somewhere, right? Take notes from. We need to do a better job of youth pastors at teaching them how to use their phones, even in youth group. There are people straight up going to hell, not because they didn't hear the message because they had a cell phone. They simply rejected what was going on. What did we blame? What did we blame inattention on? 40 years ago, before cell phones. What did we blame? That the youth group wouldn't pay attention to me. They were teenagers. That's it. There was nothing else. The phone is simply a symptomatic. It's a tool in the hands of a wild, crazy teenager, and they're figuring out ways to use it. We, as youth pastors, can do a better job of teaching them how to use it as a tool instead of a toy. We can teach them how to take notes on your phone. We can teach them how to use it to get the most out of the message. We can teach them to remember scriptures, take pictures of the thing. We could do that. We could also not get upset because they're on it. Because I know, and I will teach, this is after youth meeting, by the way, individual conversations play a big part in this. If I've sensed that somebody will say, hey buddy, love you, man, think you're awesome, but I notice you spend a lot of time on your cell phone, and I hope you're getting what I'm laying down. I'm not saying you're not. I'm not saying you're not hearing me. I'm saying that you are super dialed in to what other people are doing, and my concern is you're missing what God is trying to tell you. That's discipleship. Discipleship isn't me yelling at a group of kids because they have cell phones. Discipleship is me having an honest conversation with a student and saying, hey, you can do what you want. You can have your phone. That's fine. I'm not going to take your phone away. You're not a child. Taking their phone away doesn't teach them to be responsible. It enforces a rule and a law that you have, but that doesn't mean they're going to listen to you any more than if they had their phone. So I hope I answered your question, Ethan. But that's why I don't get mad when kids have their cell phones, because they're on their cell phone 24/7. And I'm not in charge of their life. If they choose to spend that time on that cell phone and not listen to what I'm saying, and I also believe, Ethan, one last thing, is I just think the Holy Spirit's in charge of that. The Holy Spirit has to light their ears on fire, has to light their heart on fire, that they say, but that's upon me as a communicator to be able to communicate and allow the Holy Spirit and allow the scriptures to speak. And because I can change the tone of my voice and I'll get kids to look up. If I get real dead serious or I get quiet, kids look up and go, I don't know what's going on. They don't know what's going on, but they're going to look me in the eyes when I'm talking to them. I'm doing my best, but I'm tired of getting mad about it. I'm not in charge of their life. I'll ask, 10 years from now, they'll come to me and say whatever, and I'll say, hey, they'll say my life's a mess. Now, in my brain, I want to say, well, buddy, had you not been on your cell phone, I'm not going to say that. That's what part of my flesh wants to say that. But I'm not going to say that. What I am going to say is, I'm going to say, buddy, where do you think you missed it in youth group? You know, where do you think you missed it? I'll take blame. Was I not a good communicator? Did I not communicate the gospel to you? Did I not communicate truth to you? Where do you think this broke apart? Then I'll let them be honest if they want to be honest about it. But the cell phone is not what's getting in the way, I don't believe. There's still heart issues. Still heart issues. It all boils down to the heart and the Holy Spirit that interacts with every student at their level. And I, as a communicator, am going to do my dead level best to communicate. I'm going to say something interesting. I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to tell a story. I am going to make a promise, and then I'm going to deliver on that promise. That's what I'm going to do. And then the Lord's going to have to take it and do whatever the Lord does with it, because that's my role, and to help them. And then I'm going to have hard conversations with those who are struggling with their phones, that I see they're struggling, and maybe getting in the way of their spiritual development. So that's what I'm going to do. But anyway, I hope that answers your question, Ethan. But thank you for asking the question. I appreciate the honest observation. But that was my mentality about it. And I've always sort of nailed that down for myself. And so, let's see here. So I guess we'll go on. I got one more question. Ethan, if you want to hang out and hear my last question, you can do that. Otherwise, if you got things to do, I understand, brother. Question number three. What ways are you all getting the word out about your youth group? Also, super difficult. And this is where I say, and this has been a theme running in my mind, is, Paul, you got to get louder. You got to get louder. You have to get louder as a believer. You have to get louder as a pastor. You have to get louder as a youth pastor. You have to teach your kids to get louder. And what does all that mean? Well, I wrote down a few things. They're not in order per se, but I will say this. So I would say the first thing is this: a youth pastor, if you're wanting to get the word out about your youth group, I would say this. I'll go from least to greatest. Let's say that maybe. So I guess they are in some particular order, I guess. But let me offer some recommendations. Live video talking about your youth ministry. Go live. Go live on Instagram. Go live wherever your students are. If it's Snapchat, if it's Instagram, if it's, even though I'm not a big proponent of Snapchat, I'm just not. If it's TikTok, if it's, wherever your students are, go live. And you can tag your students in it. I've done this before. I've tagged pictures. and I'm just getting louder. I'm just going to get louder. And say, look, I'm going to get on here. We're going to talk about what's happening Wednesday night. I'm going to talk about give a devotion. I'm going to be on there every day. I'm going to be a couple of times a day, scriptures. I'm going to be live. And when I go live, if they follow me, they're going to know. Now, when I go live, after I do the video, I'll tag them. I'll tag them, but I'll also hashtag your city, whatever your city is. So, like me, if I live in Hueytown, hashtag Hueytown. Why? Because Hueytown, the hashtag, when people look for that in the community, I'm going to come up. And they're going to see, who is this guy talking about youth ministry? Maybe that person sees it, is a teenager. Maybe it's a parent who has a teenager. Maybe it's somebody who knows a teenager. Who knows? But I will tag it up because I want to get louder. I have to put myself out there. That's why I do live every day, every Wednesday. That's why I go live. It's part of me getting louder so more youth pastors can find me, so I can communicate more truth to them and answer their questions. But yeah, I would say number one is do live stuff on your platforms, wherever your students are. And then I would hashtag the city that you're in, and then ask a question, getting people to engage. Okay. Next is I would go to where parents are. Okay. So if you want to get the word out about your youth group, there's groups of people that need to know. There is students who need to know, But a lot of students don't drive themselves. High schoolers maybe, right? From about sophomore on, can drive themselves. But it's parents who bring their kids a lot of the time. So go to where parents are. And I would say this, do a Facebook Live. If you think that's where most of the parents are of your teenagers, go to Facebook and do Facebook Live. And say, hey, guys, here's the Wednesday night report. Here's what's going on. And then you can tag parents in it, right? If they're on there, tag parents in there and say, hey, this is what's happening tonight. And they're hopefully they'll watch the 1 minute. You can't do it very long. But for a minute or two, talk about what's going on, what's coming up, and then tag parents in it. Also, I would find, and this is where I'm going to show you something that I think is helpful, is every Facebook group has a what's happening, right? What's happening in Woodstock? What's happening in Pleasant Grove? What's happening in Hueytown? Whatever your city is, you have a what's happening in that city. Find that what's happening, and this is what I did. Let me just show you here, and I'll make that a little bit smaller. But I took a post today. I posted that in what's happening in Woodstock. Now, I don't know a ton of people in Woodstock, but I know a lot of people in our church that are in that group, and I want them to see that, look, I'm announcing to what's happening in Woodstock. Well, our youth ministry is happening in Woodstock. That's something that's happening. And if you're not the most excited person about your youth ministry, nobody's going to be excited about your youth ministry. You got to be excited about your youth ministry. You got to be willing to get it out there. Okay. And so, for me, I just put a little simple thing, and that's my phone number. That's not the church's phone number, because the church office, the church secretary and so forth, sometimes doesn't know what I'm doing. So I make sure I know what I'm doing. I put my number. That way, if they call me, I can answer a question. Okay. So there you can see I have a bunch of pictures up there of just fun stuff we're doing. New Life Youth. And I also put a little blurb in there. I put a little blurb in the the message part. I put the picture there. So what does that do? Well, that communicates to the group, the community, which has over 3,000 people in it, that there's a youth ministry on Route 5 they can take their kids to. And they do fun things. And I also put in there, parents, are your kids struggling to make friends and find community? Every parent wants their kids to find friends and have community. Some have found it in sports. Some have found it in clubs. Some have not found it yet. I'm saying we're as good an option, or better than most options, for a student to find that thing. Because if whoever's leading that group should be the person who is in charge of building community, right? And being the church. And so I put this little graphic up and say, hey, that's what's happening. There's nothing special particularly happening. It's not an event, but I think putting it up there is probably a good idea. I would also put in there, you could start a Facebook group for parents, not your parents. Not your parents. Okay. Maybe if you're wanting to reach out and reach parents, then start a Facebook group for parents of teenagers of Woodstock, parents of teenagers of whatever town you're in, and use it as a tool to answer questions about parenting teenagers. Now, if you're a parent of a teenager, that's best. But if you just want to talk about culture, now look, most youth pastors can talk about culture and answer questions from that aspect of it. If you don't have kids or you don't have a teenager, then you can be able to talk about, those things. Talk about what you're good at talking about. Don't pretend, right? If you're a youth pastor and you're going to get on there and say, I'm going to answer all your questions about parenting teenagers, and you don't have any teenagers, shh, talk about what you know. If you want to answer cultural questions, if you want to answer some very basic questions about, hey, my teenagers is this, then you can maybe ask some questions and then maybe offer some. You're not a therapist, you're not a counselor, you're not any of those things, although you might be. I don't know, you may have graduated with a degree in that. But I can say that, look, maybe you start a separate group about helping the teenagers of your town. And you're saying, look, I'm here to answer any questions I can, to be a resource, if nothing else, for the parents of this town. That if they don't have anybody else to go to, they can come in here and talk about whatever it is they want to talk about. Okay. Another thing I would say, is starting a group. It could be, you could base it around a book. You could base it around, a particular need. What is the need in your town? Is it about violence or drugs, or if you have a particular, that God's called you to a very particular type of student. You say, hey, I feel like I can help with these kinds of kids because I was those kind of kid. And so you can talk from that, experience if in fact you don't have kids yourself or you don't have a teenager. So you can at least say, hey, I was this kind of kid, and maybe there's a certain kind of kid in your neighborhood or in your community that you say have a real heart for these kids. And parents have, it could be anything, right? So I would say here, I would say too, number 3 is make some invites, real simple, business card size. Put a QR code on there that leads back to whatever it is, your youth group, website, your Discord, your Instagram, whatever it is. Wherever that QR code is on there, it leads you to somewhere else. But on that card, you have the church, your name, phone number, and when you meet. And I would just have those cards on you that when you see a kid, say, hey, can I hand you this? Hey, look, if you're not doing anything Wednesday night, we'd love you to come out and check us out if you're not busy on Wednesday nights. Right? Simple, super simple, just a simple thing. Passing a card, right? Finding ways to do that. And number 2, choose, and I know I included this in the other one, in the other thing, but choose a group of kids you want to reach. And I mean this in the sense that was concerning the Facebook group, but I'm talking about in general specifically, that if you're saying, look, this month I'm going to do something for athletes. It's athletes month in our youth group. It's nerd month in our youth group. It's whatever. It could be something where you're going to spend your time specifically trying to design things around groups of people of something they might be interested in. And then you design what that is. Maybe it's a 3-on-3 basketball tournament. Maybe it's a, some sort of like Star Wars quiz night, trivia night, win prizes. So there's lots of things you can do, but maybe choosing to focus on a particular type of students that you want to reach. I'll tell you this, there's sports guys I love, reach them all. But I tell you what, a lot of a lot of kids don't play sports. In fact, the vast majority of kids don't play sports. So that leaves a wide berth of kids you can reach, depending on what you want to talk about or get into, right? And then I would say this is your number one way, I would call it your number one marketing strategy for your youth ministry. I've heard it said this way, that the best advertisement for your next youth ministry is this youth ministry. It's tonight's youth ministry. However tonight's youth ministry goes is the best advertisement for the next youth meeting. Because if you design a youth meeting that has purpose, it's communicating the gospel, it's focused on loving students, it's focused on directing attention towards God during worship. If you have a well-designed, not always perfectly executed, but it's going to be good. And then whatever God does in that meeting, that's your best advertisement for the next meeting. That whatever you've done all that you can do to prepare the youth meeting the best way you know how, and then you're going to leave the rest up to the Lord to be able to do that. But that's one reason why I pitch this a lot. Because I think the more you design, right? You're not just putting together a meeting, you're designing a meeting. The more you design a meeting, the more you design it on purpose with outcomes that you say, I'd really like to see this happen, then the better your planning is going to go to be able to achieve that. Once again, you're doing what you can, and you're putting the rest in the hands of the Lord. So, that's what I'm thinking. And I think that's it for today. I think we have covered a lot of ground here, folks. We've talked for almost an hour, if you believe that. Ethan, I want to thank you for joining me for this little bit of time, if you're there. Yeah, that's right. That's right, Ethan. If the meeting was good, if the listen, you usually invite your friends to things that you liked yourself. And so if the youth meeting you're having is great and you've prepared the table and your students came in and enjoyed it, then guess what? They're more than likely, if they have the opportunity, to invite somebody else. When you enjoy a great restaurant, you invite somebody else. Now, the issue is that restaurants don't command you. They don't command you to come eat. Some do, but most of the time they just serve good food. In our case, when we're talking about making disciples, the Bible says go into all the world and make disciples. And so we're doing our best as youth pastors to communicate to our students. This is, listen, part of our roles and responsibilities as a Christian, as a follower of Jesus, is that we go out and reach others. And so we want to have the best youth meeting that we can have, so that kids are not ashamed to bring their friends. And a lot of students are ashamed to bring their friends because there's a lot of youth meetings that are lame. Just face it. They just are. And that's no judgment. It's just that there's whatever the reason may be. And I know this because I've had a lot of lame meetings. I have tried to cure myself of that in the preparation process to make sure that if anything else, at least the message is going to be great. That's my focus. And hopefully everything else kind of works out. But that's it, guys. That's it for today. I want to thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. Appreciate you being a part. If you've hung out with me, you're not subscribed to this channel, if you're watching it on YouTube, maybe you're watching it on Facebook. And so, that's very kind of you, Ethan. Let me put that up here. He says, I have a friend today. His name is Coleman Cossey. Invited him to youth group, and he stayed with church because of the environment you provide at that church. But well, Ethan, thank you so much. That is very kind of you to say. I am once again, it is by God's grace that anything good happens. So if he was involved and got involved and stayed involved and hung out and participated, then man, that's something the Lord did, right? I did my part, and the Lord did like his part, and his part is the one that matters most. And I'm still trying to do it today, Ethan. Still trying to, I'm still trying to do it today, because I think the church is still a good place for young people, and I think young people need to be reached. So I'll keep at it. Thank you, though. But if you haven't subscribed, if you're on this channel, if you're on Facebook, come over to YouTube here and look for me, Paul Turner, the Disciple Project. Just, you'll find me that way. Or, once again, hit the subscribe button, all the stuff, hit the thumbs up button, all that stuff. And I'll be with you guys next Wednesday, 2 p.m. I will be up for prayer at 8 a.m. And then Wednesday morning, and then 2 p.m. Central Standard Time for office hours. So, but that is it for today, guys. Ethan, thank you for joining me, and I will catch all of you next Wednesday. How about that? Make it a date. We'll see you guys there. All right, that's it for today, guys. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a good day, everybody, and have an awesome youth meeting tonight.